Thanks, Ravin. Ladies and gentlemen, as Ravin just said, we are just about to witness a fireside chat, a panel discussion where we are discussing about mapping the omnichannel customer journey. I would like to welcome on dais my distinguished speakers here, Mr. Sai Thota, Head of Digital Marketing and Council Panels. Welcome, sir. We have with us Mr. Nikhil Dhar, Associate Vice President Digital and Marketing at Indigo Airlines. Welcome, Nikhil.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Puneet Chahar, Asia Head of Digital Performance Marketing at OLX Autos. Welcome, Puneet. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Shobhit Jain, Head of Product Marketing, Data and Insights, APAC at Adobe. Welcome. So, we have been talking about customer experience and the need to align the marketing team with your UX team, as Sarshot mentioned, and the need on this has been, more prominent ever so, now. Moving on, right? As the pandemic, we spoke about the pandemic earlier as well. The pandemic has really sped up what we call digital experience and digital buying is, right? People are now actually conversing with brands on multiple channels and multiple touch points. What we are going to witness now is that we have a plethora of brand representatives across industries and categories on the panel, and we'll understand from them how their customers have been interacting with their brands across the touch points that we have mentioned earlier. It's my absolute pleasure and it's my honor to welcome our guests again on the dais. But before we start, I would really want to come to the audience here, right? And maybe do a show of hands here and understand. We are talking about the pandemic, the 2 years of pandemic that we have spent. For the audience in the panel today, I would like to understand, how many of you do really think that, customer behavior, we as customers, have changed our way of interacting with brands? If I can have a show of hands. All right, that's nearly around 40% of the audience. That actually leads me to the question, and I would come to my brand representatives here, and I'll start with you, Sai, because you are, sitting at the extreme left. How have you seen your audience and your consumer change over the years, and how have their interactions with your brand across touch point, evolved?
Certainly, customers going online has certainly is one big thing that we have seen. So it's certainly if you talk about post-pandemic, the first approximately an year or so, we have really seen a tremendous growth in terms of people. We have actually it's like a black swan event for us, and that's one big change that we have seen. And with reference to the retail stores, because they are also we also have online, we have offline stores also. We have also seen one trend that's actually growing is people calling the shop and then ordering and all. That's also happening. So these are the two trends that we have seen that has actually changed post-pandemic.
Thanks. I was mentioning to you, how your service was very handy during the lockdown. So thank you for that. Moving on to Nikhil. Nikhil, the same question to you. How have you seen your customers evolve and converse with you across touch points?
So I think for aviation as a sector, I would say obviously digital has been part of the sector for a while. A lot of people buy tickets online, etc., etc. But what happened post-pandemic was a hyper digital. I think rather than just saying digital, I think we say it's hyper digital. Everyone has just moved slightly hyperly into digital space, which means that a lot of things change for us. Obviously, one of the big things which we had to do from a experience perspective was to focus on contactless, which was not really focused earlier. So things like, can you print your baggage tags at home, which you had to do at airports, health declaration forms online rather than having to do them physically at the airport. So a lot of things had to be changed for us to really focus on making our sort of end experience contactless as much as possible, because people were sort of afraid, they didn't, and all of us were, right? Nobody wanted to touch things. So that was one big change that we had to bring, and customers sort of responded to it. I think secondly, what also happened was there were a lot of new services, etc., which we had to sort of bring into place, which was expectation from the customers, which had to be done all digitally, right? People wanted that from us, whether it's things like you wanted your next seat to be empty because you're traveling, right? You don't want someone to be sitting next to you. So we had to sort of introduce those things. So there was a lot of that expectation change from customer, which pushed us to do a lot of these things. And similarly, I would say internally also there was a similar requirement. How do we make more and more things digital in that sense? So I would say industry has gone through has responded to this hyper digital era in a way, but it's still a journey. I think it's a long journey, and we are working on it.
Great. It's true for business and life as well. The last 2 years have been full of learnings and unlearnings and learnings. Puneet, you understand your point of view. I know we discussed about the used car market and how it is booming right now. But what's your thought? How have your consumers started interacting with you across touch points, and if at all there is a change in the way they talk to you?
Hello. Yeah. So we are, in the space of buying and selling used cars. In India, we are focusing more on buying the used cars. So if someone want to sell, they used to come to the store where we will inspect the car, and then we will communicate the price, and then some negotiation happens, and then we transfer the money, and the customer will hand over the keys. So this was the process. Then the pandemic happened. So one good thing happened, after the first wave, that was that used car sales crossed the new car sales, because lot of people, because of pandemic, started buying cars. The people who were earlier using public transport, now they were not feeling comfortable, and they bought cars. So that is one thing. Second, how we change our model, also our processes, because now there are new expectations from the customer. They are not comfortable coming to the store. So we changed our model, and we started home inspections. So now today, I think more than 90% of the inspections happening at home. So now we go, we inspect the car. You don't have to worry and go anywhere. From the comfort of your home, you can book appointment. I will come there, inspect the car, and you can sell it from your home. So that is one very big shift, in the business, process that happened during the pandemic.
Right. Have there been, and I pertain to the used car market, have there been also deliveries that are happening? Like, I have seen a lot of communication, some of your competitors obviously in the market, while the touch points of interactions and test drives have increased, multiple touch points around deliveries also happening?
Yeah, so in India, because we are not, focusing on selling to the end customer, but another market which I take care of, Indonesia, there we buy and sell to the end customer. And a few weeks back, we did complete online sale of a car where user did not come to the store or anywhere, nothing happened. It was delivered to the doorstep. So that is where we are heading. Obviously, we started with home test drive and everything else, but we are building that digital journey where no physical touch points are required.
And who said cars can't be sold online? Moving on to Survit here. So I would really want to come to Survit and understand You have been growth partners to a lot of brands across categories, across geographies as well. How what has been Adobe's stand on this changing pattern of consumer interactions and multi-channel interactions happening across brands for their consumers, and how do you advise your brands to gear up to these conversations?
Yeah. So as everybody on the dais today said, that pandemic for sure got one thing, that was heavy uptake in the digital channels. The digital journeys for customer went more deeper than ever. Like Puneet said, right? Probably buying a car at some point in time, be it a first-hand car or a second-hand car, it was always like, hey, we researching. Now the transactions went deeper, right? So that really got into the fact that, hey, how do I analyze the data better? Why? Because the amount of data that brands were collecting was thrice or twice more than what they did earlier. The other thing that really kicked in was the number of channels. Uh, Adobe's customers across the globe started asking us to develop features with our product where they could ingest data from any digital touch point, right? We saw an uptick in terms of voice devices. Nikhil spoke about contactless way of communication, and the amount of data that we saw coming in from Alexas and Siris of the world was an insane amount, right? Data coming from wearables was really on a high. With all this, there was one thing that was really pertinent. There was physical interactions that were not lost, right? In the US, in Asia as well, we saw that there were hybrid models that started coming up, like a curbside pickup and things like that. And what people wanted to do is people wanted to see that entire journey in a single flow, right? People were looking at siloed data, people were looking at digital data, and brands were good with that. But right now, because that journey had become really complex, that was like one ask that we had from brands across the globe, that, hey, Adobe, how can you help us on that? And the third thing that I found like really interesting was that while it didn't have to do a lot with the pandemic, but there was an uptick of different modes of digital experiences as well. And I mean, I know everybody would have heard about the Omniverse or the Metaverse that coined last year. And right now, we're working with a brand that has a showroom that's coming up in the Metaverse, and they want to capture digital signals, like how I, as a customer, am interacting with the brand in the Metaverse, and put it into Adobe Analytics. And we're successfully seeing how did the customer have that visit in the Metaverse world, in the real world, on their website, on the mobile app. So yeah, that's the big challenge for us. That's where we are getting up with our products, and we are helping our consumers to kind of widen the digital channels and widen the physical channels as well.
Fascinating. The world of metaverse and the world of NFTs, right? Brands
Yeah.
are really waking up to that. We talked about omnichannel a lot. All of us talked about omnichannel. During our conversation, I really want to come to Nikhil here. Nikhil, you mentioned about various aspects of the consumers who are interacting with Indigo Airlines when it comes to contactless bookings and going forward for their journey, right? So how do you see the use of data here? I can foresee, I can see a lot of data coming in, right? So how do you use data and then deliver these personalized experiences for your various consumers who are looking for various services?
No, I think as mentioned by Subhath and everyone agrees at this point of time, data is the new gold at this point of time, right? And one thing which is becoming more and more critical is the first party data. With the whole third party data accessibility becoming difficult. For us, thankfully, we get a lot of first party data because people give their name, surname, where they're flying to, what they'll buy, etc. So that ability allows us to access a lot of data, and we all make sure that we capture that data and use it in a smart way. And there are various ways that you use this data. Obviously, there is that you try to give them more personalized experience. From a service perspective, sometimes you have few indicators to tell whether this customer has flown with us quite a few times and things like that, so that you can give them better experience, a more customized, personalized experience. But not only that, obviously, it allows us to do a lot more cross-selling, upselling, because we understand the customer better. We have slightly more insight. For example, if someone has flown on us last time and we know for last 5 journeys, they always buy chicken jungli sandwich. They love chicken jungli sandwich and they've not booked it this time. We'll make sure that we sort of again remind them that you're missing out on your favorite chicken jungli sandwich. So why don't you sort of purchase it? So there are so that allows us to do a lot of these things. And one important thing that we leverage this, I think, for us as an organization, and I think overall for the industry, net promoter score is a big metric for us. At least that's internally we track that very rigorously. Like every week, we check our net promoter score. So that this data also allows us to understand much better where are the detractors, where are the promoters, what are those areas that we can sort of enhance. And we are in a service industry, right? Run by thousands and thousands of people, and there'll be challenges and a lot of things with aviation are not in our control. Like we can't really control the weather at the end of the day. If the rain gods have to do something, they will do something, right? But more and more data that we have allows us to do a lot of things, not only on the customer side, but also on our own operational side, what we can do better. So that's our purpose. The idea is we want to continue to mine this data and make sure that we have access to more and more first party data, because that's the goal at the end of the day.
Great. With every marketer I have spoken to in the last couple of years, everybody is, anticipating this cookieless world, and they are really, taking their steps very carefully. But we'll come to that later. But on your chicken sandwich part, I want to go to Sai here on that note. Sai, there is a connection, right? I mean, and I'll tell you what. How do you look at data, or do you also, look at data, consume it on the same way? Like, how many of your consumers are ordering, red velvet cakes or, petals of roses for their, during their celebrations?
Okay, so to be very honest, in our business, basically there is a customer and there is a recipient. That also is a big differentiator with a lot of businesses. So if the customer, there is no fixed. For example, at the end of the day, when I'm actually buying something, a customer is buying from me. It actually depends on what the recipient is going to like. So there's no guarantee, there's no specific trend as such. But then, for example, there is a high possibility that if the customer, let's say, I last time gave you a chocolate cake for your last birthday, there is a high possibility that next time you come, if at all it's going to be a cake, it's going to be chocolate cake kind of. So in those journeys, there is high predictability in the system, and we have that documented. And then the next time when we have these communications with them, these things happen. But then let's say it's not next birthday, the next time he's visiting, let's say in 15 to 20 days. A little tricky in our case, but at the same time, lately we have also invested into CDP, customer data platform. It's not, of course, pandemic is not the trigger. We have actually initiated that exercise a little ahead. We are still maturing that CDP as a platform. So, for example, let's say yesterday you have come on my mobile site, and then today, if you are again repeating on desktop site, let's say yesterday you have come from your last night before you go to bed, let's say you are just browsing on the website, and then next day when you go to office, let's say you want to place this order. So we have this intelligent, so this is where we are actually maturing. I would say we are still not mature. So we are actually trying to join these two sessions, and then there is a very high possibility of this customer buying what he has browsed last night. So there the accuracy of prediction is more, but not, let's say if it comes next month, a little tricky for us to, because who the recipient is going to. For example, today if I'm going to do it for your birthday, then next month I come and it is for, let's say, Char's anniversary. It's a little tricky, but then if the customer has placed a few orders with us, we have these occasions in our repository. So based on that time, yeah, at times we can predict that, but we are still in the process of developing higher prediction when it comes to this. But the tricky and the complex situation is the customer and recipient part of it. We're still learning.
That's the magic of data, I guess. Puneet, in your business, right? How do you make sense of customer data, right? Is the customer out after buying the car? I mean, what's the interaction with the brand?
So, see, in aviation, it is like there will be customers, flying almost every week. So the repeat happens every week. In size case, it would be like maybe every year. In our case, if you have sold a car to us today, you are not going to sell a car tomorrow or in next year. So we are here, and that, that is our thought process, that when it comes to customer data, one good thing that we did, we invested in CDP very early on. So we can capture all this first party data, because we know today you are selling a car, buying a new car, after 4-5 years you will be selling again. Yeah. So we are waiting for that much time. In some markets where we are selling the used cars, we take cues from what kind of filters the users are using. For example, someone using there must be 6 airbags. So that is very, very big data point. So whatever cars you recommend should have those 6 airbags. So it is about understanding those personas, and also what kind of experiences those persona had in past before coming to your brand, because it is a very different market. The people having different kind of experiences offline with dealers. And now we are kind of organizing that market. So you need to take care of what kind of experiences they had in past with offline or other players, and then what they are looking for, and then present your offerings in that way.
So the question is, you are from OLX Autos, right?
Yeah.
But then your platform is much bigger. You are saying that it might be difficult for me to. I mean, the frequency is less and all. But then, because you are also talking about CDP and all. So do you feed in this information to rest of the verticals of OLX?
Oh, so there are traditionally people know OLX for the C2C marketplace, where a seller can go and list any items they want to sell, and buyer and seller will connect, and transaction happens offline. Now OLX is not the party in the transaction, hence cannot control the experience of transaction as well. So we started with the transaction business with the autos category. Now, to answer your question, yes, we do take some cues from that data set, and we know till the level that someone, let me give you very different example. What breed of pet someone listed on OLX, or what kind of DSLR someone listed on OLX, what is the propensity of owning a car and selling it to OLX. So we analyze till that level, because in our case, when it comes to advertising, and reaching out to the customers who have the car, it is more of a guesstimation, let me tell you. Because people who have intent to sell the car using the keywords and on Google like sell car, it is very small. So it is more of a guesstimation, and then there we take cues from our own ecosystem and make connections. Okay, what is the behavioral aspect of these users on other categories, and what is the propensity that they will have a car and they will sell.
Thanks, Puneet. Srubit, I have two questions for you right here. So one is obviously, around data, right? And it's understandable that, organizations and brands need to make investments in tools and technologies, right? To make sense of data so as to, create personalized experiences. So what are the kind of tools that, a brand like OLX Autos or a brand like, Indigo Airlines or even, Funds and Petals should make investments for, so as to ensure that there is ROI there. That's one place. And then the second is about the entire world garden of a cookieless world that marketers are anticipating. You as a growth partner, what's your assessment of this, and how do you advise brands to look at it?
Sure. So, from a data perspective, like you heard each one of us here, that data is the new oil, and what you're really doing is you're capturing a lot of data. Every brand is doing that to understand a customer's need and to be able to predict what the customer wants, be it a chicken sandwich, be it a chocolate cake, or be it like a specific model of the car. So that's the basic building block for every enterprise right now. Everybody wants to analyze that data. The one portion that that's gone really critical right now is one is collecting that data in a very privacy compliant manner, and that connects to the third party cookie conversation, right? There's nothing wrong with the third party cookie. I joke about it to people in the product team. I say bekar baat mein third party cookie badnaam hai. It's a fair piece of technology. It stores an ID, but the whole thing is it's how brands collect data and how they build a relationship with other brands, right? With their customers. I'll take an example of what Nikhil said, right? I'm on Indigo's website. I book my ticket whenever I'm taking a flight through Indigo, and sure, I like chicken sandwich. I love their chicken sandwich. But I am I'm consenting Indigo that, hey, you can keep this information that I like chicken sandwich. I'm a Jen, as my surname says. Still, I like chicken sandwich. I don't want you to publish that information to Sorry Ferns and Petals. And next time I don't want them to start giving me, offering me a chicken sandwich combo. Or tomorrow, like if say Indigo starts having a partnership with another travel provider, right? Do I consent that, right? Now there's this whole era of regulations, GDPR, and India's coming up with their own regulations, and my whole question is that does a GDPR or the India version of GDPR that will soon be there, will that dictate my relationship with Indigo? No. That's a government regulation. I will really trust. It's like how I trust a human relationship. I probably will trust a human relationship with you if I know that, hey, you understand the data, the things that I'm telling you. Is that for a personal conversation? Is it to be spoken in a group, or it can be spoken on the dais publicly? It goes same for all brands, right? So it's about collecting data, but at the same time collecting data in a very privacy controlled, in a privacy controlled manner, because that's a pivotal portion of customer experience, right? There are brands, there are people that I feel like when I get personalized, I find that creepy, right? And that's where it starts breaking that trust with the brand. So brands need to be careful about that. The second thing that I always recommend brands is that it's good that we collect a lot of data. It's good that we have a lot of insights about our customers, right? But what do we do with those insights? There are, say, if my analytics team is giving me about like 100 insights in a week, I need to be able to pick those specific insights and be able to action them so that it's moving the needle for my customer experience, right? So as Sai said that, if I'm being able to analyze that pattern and I'm able to give you a good recommendation, and that's increasing the time to closure, then that insight is good. So being able to come up with a framework that from where you can catch the correct signals and action it out, right? Otherwise you're just drowning in your own data.
Fascinating. Thanks, Rohit. So, one thing that really stood out in our conversation is, empowering the team, right? And, it came up at least twice when Nikhil was speaking, and when Sumit was speaking about how the teams are looking at technology and technology based marketing, right? And going forward, understanding and deciphering CX better, right? You as marketing leaders in your organizations, I would want to come to all of you, and maybe start with Puneet here, right? How are you empowering your teams, right, to understand CX better, and hence help your brand create wonderful experiences with the customers?
Yeah. So before answering to that, let me just add, to the data part. Very valid point. We are collecting a lot of data, but what we are doing with the data? And there has been one study that of all the data which organizations are collecting, how much they end up not using, and the number is very big. It is 60 to 72% of the data is unused. So we are talking about cookie-less world and collect data, this and that. But very frankly, whatever data we are collecting, we should ask a question: is that data really useful to provide better experience to the customer? Will I end up using this data or not? So that is very basic question that we all at least as a marketer we should ask. On the flip side, it is true that the third-party cookies. Today, if we look at around 80% of the remarketing runs on third parties. It is on third-party cookies. So once, say tomorrow, third-party cookie is not there, 80% of remarketing is gone. So better prepare for it, and it is coming soon. It is coming very soon. It is like we are in Q1. It is coming after 2 quarters. So the first stage of transition will start after 2 quarters. To your question on the CX, like I mentioned, so one good thing that
To that as well, right? It's behavioral change. The one that you mentioned about third-party cookies, phasing out of third-party cookies. It's a behavioral change for every market here. So you might answer this question in that aspect as well. Like how are you empowering your teams, including the cookieless world as well, right?
Yeah. So let me connect both the dots.
Correct.
So we were having this backstage conversation that D2C is the flavor. Every brand, whichever category you go, D2C is the flavor because you get first party data. So it is preparation for that cookieless world. First, it will obviously start with third party cookies and then ultimately the cookieless world. So this focus, and obviously it will take time, and brands are also preparing for that, and hence that there is this focus. For that, obviously, you need the right kind of tooling to get that data and collect that data, analyze that data. We very early on invested in CDP. So that is one good thing that we did. So today we know the end-to-end journey of the customer, and our journey is a bit complex because it is online and then it is offline, and you have then the dealer data, customer data, call center data, then you have the marketing data. So it is really helpful to have that CDP, and you have all the data stitched together there, and then you give the relevant access to the relevant team so they can see, okay, where is the customer in that journey, what kind of intervention is required, what kind of communication is required.
Nikhil, your take on this.
No, I think rightly said. I think at this point of time, teams across marketing and others need access to a lot of tools. And if you look at how the MarTech world has evolved in terms of technology, and I was reading this study, right? In 2011, there were roughly 100 MarTech tools. At this point of time, there are over 10,000 MarTech tools in the market. So that's how the MarTech world has completely gone berserk. And rightly so, because there is need and there are players. There are some established players and there are some niche players who have sort of come in. Similarly, for us, there are 3-4 critical sort of tools that we use. Obviously, analytics is one very important piece because at the end of the day, you need to sort of analyze all the data. The other important tools is one which we definitely use is sort of a automation, marketing automation for any ways to do, and sort of is sort of an oxymoron to say mass personalization, because you're doing personalization but at mass level. But to do something like that, you need like a automation tool, right? So that becomes important. Other tools that we use is, for example, an A/B testing tool. I think that's very critical in this day and age. You need to sort of continue to learn and understand from, especially from an UX perspective, on your sort of digital channels, what really works. Great sort of was really inspired by what was shown on the Airtel work. Great use of data. How do you sort of continue to improve your UX? And I think A/B testing sort of helps a lot in trying to get that. So these are some of the tools. Obviously, there are a lot of other tools for social, etc. But these are sort of some key tools that are used by the teams to really able to deliver at the end of the day. Because for all of us as marketers, we always have limited budgets, right? The CFOs don't like us a lot. So it's important that we are able to sweat our assets or whatever budgets that we have to the max. So it's important that the team is empowered, they have the right tools so that they can take the right decision and then sweat whatever budgets they have at the end of the day.
Yeah, precisely why.
Sorry. While you are talking about limited budgets, I don't agree with Puneet. Puneet has a lot of budgets.
Precisely why you need technology.
NASPER is behind them.
So it is like, we are a new player. We have very big competition. So we are investing in the right channels.
Sai, your thought. I'm sure you have a lot of budgets on that front.
Yeah, these two guys have already talked a lot about that. So I will not try to go into that. Probably I'll just give a quick example. At the end of the day, how, for example, one example if I have to take is from the retention perspective. One example, I'm talking about this returning customer. Let's say last year he has placed an order for birthday and all, right? So in this use case, let's say we have to get this customer and place an order again, because the birthday is going to happen, the anniversary is going to happen. I mean, at least that annual event to hota hi hota hai. So so the kind of again, this is still we are trying to mature this particular automation that we are trying to do is, let's say I as a customer might be coming back because I have a number of tools, right? I can send a notification, I can send an email, I can send a SMS, I can retarget them everywhere, and then do a number of things, right? So the kind of automation that we're actually trying to do is basically, where is this guy, which channel is he more inclined towards? So basically, let's not bombard him messages on all the channels. Let's just send him a message on a specific channel where is highly possible to convert. That's one. And then when you are trying to do that, do it at that time when he's actually active. Probably last 2-3 conversation orders that he has placed, maybe he's doing it at a specific time. When you do it at that specific time, so one is the time part of it, the channel part of it, and then actually, because we know that the customer has placed the order last time, there's high propensity that he's going to place that order. So the time, the place, and then I'm also talking about again the timing. For example, if he's active at 8 a.m. in the morning or 8 p.m. in the night. So analyzing that and be able to send that communication at that point of time, there's high propensity of this customer coming back with again the recommendations of the product. It could be cross sell, it could be upsell, because it's with one communication we know that it may not happen. Okay, if there is a second communication happening, it would be a different angle. Okay, and then let's say still the customer is not coming back. Then you segment them and then probably do retargeting or whatever, social everywhere and all. So this is one of the use cases that I can talk about more than again talking about the whole gamut, because that itself is a subject. So this is one example that I can quote.
Sure. Thanks, Sai. Before we close the panel and basically open the floor for questions, I would want to come to all of you and do a quick fire round here. And do a kind of crystal gazing where we are talking about CX. Let's see where the future is, in terms of CX is concerned, and where does CX feature in the entire marketing mix of marketers down here, right? Sumit, I have a separate question for you, but that's a part of the quick fire. I'll come to you. But let's start with Sai because he has just finished his answer. So Sai, a quick fire question. How do you see CX becoming bigger in your marketing mix?
The customers are growing, the demands are so with this endless demanding customers. If brands doesn't have a proper CX strategy in place, they can't differentiate themselves in the because anybody and everybody. I can't say that being in this business, but then people might get into this business of flowers and gifting, but then in that clutter, if you have to stand out, I think going forward, CX is going to be one differentiator. So I would say if you are not focused, if you don't have a proper CX strategy, I'm sure the business are not going to last long.
Great.
That's how I would say.
Nikhil, your thoughts? What stands out?
I think at least aviation is a service industry, right? So customer experience is core of it and has been always at core of it. But I think what has happened is now what's important, becoming important is I would say omnichannel customer experience. I think that's what's becoming very important for and for marketing people. I think that's what they have to understand, that a customer experience has to then flow through every touch point that a customer is interacting, because it's no longer that when you're taking a flight, it'll just be at the airport or when you're in the air. There'll be a lot of other touch points. And I think some of the organizations have started talking about it, but you will see this return on experience, ROE, becoming talk more and more in hopefully in not only just in marketing but at board levels, etc. And there are fabulous examples of how organizations have focused on looked at return on experience and delivered great results for them with their organizations.
The transformation from ROI to ROE is basically summarizes the entire story on CX, right? Over to you, Puneet.
So for us at OLX Autos, customer experience is at the center. In all our, so we have a separate customer experience focused department as well, but it is everyone's responsibility. Yeah? And we have customer experience advocate in every meeting. And some of the initiatives which we wanted to do, we did not end up doing because it might affect the customer experience. And we track, the customer experience right from, the interaction that happens, online when they book the appointment, from there to when the inspection happens, from there to when the final transaction happens. So we track it at every level, and we have a view. Okay, what are the pain points? Because when you see your NPS going down at a specific stage, yeah, suddenly you start worrying, and that gives you a lot of insights as well, and you then change your processes accordingly. For example, in some cases we were promising the customer that hey, we will come tomorrow, yeah, and we have fixed up time, and we end up not going. I mean, that is the worst customer experience, and that came out of those studies, that there were few percentage of customers we promised to inspect the car, but we did not go. Also, another thing that we have changed, in last 12 to 18 months is weed out the unnecessary touch points. And I think it is very important to give the excellent customer experience. The customer is not expecting too many communications from you. So just stick to what is required. Earlier, for example, we were doing multiple callings before going to the customer. Now we stick to say 1 or 2 calls, because whatever is essential, only stick to that. And it is across, not only just in terms of calling, but in terms of how we send the push notification or emails or SMSs. Yeah.
Great. I mean, that's also very important, how to understand what's unnecessary, because that might result into a negative experience. So, Rohit, the last word from you. As a digital experience company, what are the focus areas that Adobe is currently focusing on so far as digital transformation for brands are concerned?
Sure. So as everybody on the stage said, right, providing a personalized experience for each of these brands is really important. And what we are continuously thinking is how can we provide technology that's upping the game, right? What Nikhil said about something called mass personalization, right? And usually we are all working with systems that bucket us into a set of users, right? I might be interested in a red velvet cake when I'm booking the next deal on Ferns and Petal, or I might be looking at a chicken sandwich or an aisle seat when I'm booking Indigo. But what we realize and what brands are telling us that every customer is different, and we really want to provide a differentiated customer experience to each of our clients, and that's what we call personalization at scale. And what we are building towards with our products is the ability to understand each and every customer separately, to be able to ingest data for each and every customer in real time, to be able to analyze using AI ML technologies what those wants of that customer is, and to be able to deliver that customer experience, that differentiated customer experience for each of your customer, and be able to do that separately for the millions and millions of customers that you have. So that's the true meaning of personalization and scale, and that's where we're heading to deliver with our digital technology.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this session today and helping us understand what CX can be, for brands, and why CX is so much important. The future of CX on that note. Thank you so much. Thanks.